All right, let's dive into this D&D campaign you've sent us. Looks like your group is dealing with some spooky stuff in Barovia, specifically Durst Manor. And get this, they're using D&D Beyond and Discord to play.
That's really cool. I mean, it shows how people can play D&D no matter where they are.
Yeah, the blend of classic tabletop with that virtual
A
collaborator.
so much depth of the story. This isn't just about battling monsters. It's creating a real immersive experience.
Especially in Barovia. That place is known for being super gloomy. And all those gothic horror vibes.
Oh, and I noticed the campaign starts in Daggerford.
Yeah, on the Sword Coast. It's like a classic D&D starting point, right?
Yeah, but think about it. Daggerford is all about light and adventure. Then, bam, they get pulled into Barovia's darkness.
It's a total shift in tone.
Exactly.
I bet when they're playing, it's like the familiar city just vanishes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom, there's this oppressive gloom everywhere.
Yeah.
And that mist cutting them off from everything.
That's Barovia for you.
So they get lured in by this quest, investigating wolf attacks, maybe even a werewolf.
Classic D&D hub.
But something feels off from the get-go, right?
Right, like the Baroness offering that bonus.
If it turns out to be a werewolf,
it's like she knows it's something worse.
yeah,
And she needs them to confirm it.
then there's the Vistani.
Those nomadic people tied to Barovia?
They guide the party into the mists. It's like they're hiding something, like they have their own agenda.
The Vistanis are always a mystery. Nobody really knows their connection to Strahd.
He's the vampire lord of Barovia, right?
Yeah, but are they loyal to him? Are they forced to serve him? It's never clear.
So their guidance is helpful, but also kind of manipulative.
Exactly. They're leading the adventurers down a specific path. But the reason why, who knows?
And then, as they cross into Barovia, Valinair's mage hand spell turns skeletal.
If that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is.
Talk about setting the tone.
It's like magic itself is twisted in Barovia, warped by Strahd.
But then they meet Strahd himself.
What an entrance.
He welcomes them to Barovia.
But it's more of a threat than a welcome.
It's like he's saying, you're in my domain now.
Strahd is a master manipulator. He loves to play with his victims. He even calls himself the Land.
Emphasizing that he controls everything, right?
Exactly.
So the players are already feeling trapped, like they're in a nightmare they can't escape. And they haven't even reached Durst Manor yet.
Durst Manor is a big deal in this campaign. It's not just a haunted house, it's like a miniature Barovia, a place where hope dies.
Yeah, they're led there by those ghostly kids, Rose and Thorn.
They claim there's a monster in the basement.
But come on, ghostly children in a creepy mansion. You know, things are about to get weird.
Rose and Thorn are interesting characters. They embody the tragedy of Barovia.
They seem innocent enough. But those ghostly forms, and the fact they can't enter the manor.
It makes you wonder, are they really asking for help, or are they manipulating the adventurers? Maybe luring them deeper into the manor's secrets.
And the manor itself, it's described as being perfectly preserved, like time stops.
Super unsettling, like the house is holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen.
That stillness is what makes Barovia so creepy.
It creates this feeling of unease, like something's lurking just out of sight.
And the manor's elegance just adds to that.
Imagine walking through perfectly set dining tables, untouched food in the pantry, but no sign of life anywhere.
It's the perfect setting for a gothic horror story. And then there's that family portrait, the one with the missing infant.
Yeah, it's like a giant clue screaming, something went wrong here.
It hints at the Durst family's tragedy.
A puzzle the adventurers have to solve.
And don't forget how the characters start acting weird.
Yeah, Ares stacking those books in a strange way.
And Radley fixating on the family's coat of arms.
It's subtle, but it hints that something's messing with their minds.
Like the manor itself is influencing them.
Playing on their weaknesses.
And then Skult finds that hidden room with the trapped corpse and Strahd's letter.
That's a major turning point.
Strahd's letter is chilling.
It shows how cruel he is.
Yeah.
And how much he enjoys the Durst family's desperation.
He calls them worms writhing in my earth.
It shows his complete disdain for mortals, especially those who try to bargain with him.
So it's not just a haunted house anymore. It's a place where Strahd's influence is everywhere.
Like a spider web he's woven to trap the unwary.
The adventurers are way over their heads. They're not just dealing with a monster. They're dealing with Strahd himself and the darkness he's woven into Barovia.
And the question is, can they escape? Or will they become another part of Barovia's tragic history?
Speaking of unsettling places, Durst Manor is just the beginning of Barovia's creepiness. What else have you found out about their experiences? I've been thinking about the characters and their races. It's like their strengths and weaknesses get amplified in Barovia. like Valar and Skull. They're elves, usually graceful, agile, resistant to magic,
Right.
But in Barovia, their senses are overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and their magic doesn't seem to work as well,
It's as if Barovia strips away their natural defenses.
making them vulnerable.
Imagine being bombarded by senses you can't control, feeling like you're constantly being watched.
Yeah, that would wear anyone down, even an elf. Then you've got Radley, the human fighter. He's usually the level-headed one,
Right, the calm one.
but even he gets affected by Barovia.
Yeah, remember how he gets possessed by Thorn's ghost?
It shows that anyone can be overtaken by the darkness.
It doesn't matter how strong you are.
And Ares, the half-orc barbarian, all about strength and rage.
Right.
But in Barovia, her rage seems out of control
It's like Barovia feeds on negative emotions, amplifying them.
and turning them against you,
Ares' rage becomes a liability.
pushing her further into darkness.
This campaign really highlights the psychological aspect of horror.
It's not just about fighting monsters. It's about fighting the darkness within yourself. Speaking of monsters, let's talk about what they find under Durst Manor. You've got that Ochia in the dine area with all those tentacles.
Gross.
Then there are those spectral shadows that drain the party's strength.
Oh, and don't forget those skeletons chained up in the shrine room.
It's like a parade of creepy creatures.
But each monster has a purpose. It's not just about combat.
They represent Barovia's corruption.
The way it twists the living and the dead,
Like the Ochia
thriving in filth and decay, a symbol of Barovia's state of rot.
and the shadows. They feed on despair,
Like a manifestation of hopelessness.
draining the adventurer's strength, making them vulnerable to Strahd.
Exactly. Even the skeletons, forced to watch others suffer.
It's a reflection of the endless cycle of suffering in Barovia.
Like even in death, there's no escape.
Then you have Ares and Radley getting possessed. That's a different kind of monster encounter.
Definitely. But in some ways, the most disturbing.
Possession is a classic horror trope,
It plays on our fear of losing control.
becoming something we're not.
And even after they find the children's bones,
That sense of possession lingers.
it's like Barovia itself is haunted, not just by ghosts, but by all the trauma that's happened there.
It's heavy stuff. But it makes you think. Oh, and we haven't even talked about how they're using technology
Yeah, D&D Beyond and Discord.
to play this campaign,
It's amazing how it allows for this shared storytelling.
even though they're not all in the same room.
D&D Beyond has all the tools for managing characters, tracking stats.
And Discord lets them talk and roleplay in real time.
It shows how adaptable D&D is.
It's not limited to the tabletop anymore.
It's about connecting with others and using your imagination to create something special,
Whether you're together or miles apart, it's like writing a collaborative novel.
where the story changes based on everyone's choices.
Speaking of choices, what about the Dungeon Master? What about the lore of Barovia itself? What makes it so different from other D&D worlds?
Barovia is more than just a place. It's a demiplane.
Like a pocket dimension.
Exactly. It exists outside of time and space,
Wow.
and it's ruled by Strahd.
The Vampire Lord.
He's both the ruler and a prisoner of Barovia.
How does that work?
He's cursed, forced to relive his mistakes, driven by a love that became an obsession.
So he's trapped in his own personal hell, and he drags everyone else down with him. Basically,
That's pretty dark.
Barovia reflects Strahd's soul.
So it's always gloomy.
Yeah,
And people live in fear. Right. And the mist that surrounds Barovia,
that's part of his control, right?
it keeps people from escaping, a constant reminder that they're trapped.
It's not just a physical prison. It's a mental one, too,
Yeah, it's like the land itself is filled with despair.
making it hard to feel any hope. But what about the Vistani? They seem to come and go from Barovia as they please.
They're a mystery, connected to Strahd somehow.
But how?
Maybe they're his agents, luring people into Barovia, manipulating events for him.
Like his spies.
Exactly.
Adds to that feeling of being watched, like someone's always observing you.
That constant unease.
It's creepy.
But it also makes the story more interesting,
For sure. And then you have all the different locations in Barovia,
each with its own dark history.
connected to Strahd's curse.
Like the village of Barovia,
The heart of the land.
but also a place of despair,
And Castle Ravenloft, looming over everything.
a symbol of Strahd's power,
And of course, Durst Manor. Like a mini Barovia.
showing the extent of Strahd's influence.
The suffering he causes. And the reminder that there are no happy endings in Barovia. It's a lot to think about. As we head into the final part of this deep dive, what are your overall thoughts? What are the big takeaways from this campaign? We've really gone deep into Durst Manor. All those spooky vibes in Barovia. And those creatures, so creepy.
Definitely not your average haunted
The
house.
psychological twists, too. It makes you think, what's this campaign really about? Is it more than just monsters and dice rolls?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think it's saying, then?
Well, it makes you think about our own fears. Isolation, control, the choices we make when things get dark. Literally and figuratively, you know?
It's like Barovia is this place with zero hope.
Right, even a tiny bit of optimism gets snuffed out.
And Strahd, he's like the puppet master.
With a really tragic past.
Yeah, but also this need to control everything.
It's a cautionary tale.
About power and obsession.
Strahd's story is sad, sure, but it shows what happens when you cling to the past.
When you let grief consume you. And the adventurers, they walk into this mess. They have to deal with the threats, but also the darkness inside themselves.
Like when Ayers and Radley get possessed.
That's such a strong image.
Shows how easily we can be manipulated.
Especially when we're vulnerable.
Makes you think about what we do when we're desperate and afraid.
And we can't forget they're playing this online. D&D Beyond, Discord, all that.
It adds a whole other layer, right?
It's like technology connects us,
Right.
but also isolates us.
It's a weird paradox.
On one hand, they're creating this story together.
But there's also this distance.
Yeah, like a screen separating them from the game.
Yeah.
I wonder how that changes the experience.
Does it make it more immersive?
With visuals, sound effects, music.
Or does it create a detachment?
From the characters and the world. It's something to think about as virtual tabletop gaming evolves.
It's a discussion that's not going away.
But at its core, D&D is about imagination, about working together to create something.
Telling a story together.
So as we wrap up, what's the big takeaway for you? What should our listeners be thinking about?
Durst Manor, Barovia. They're more than just places in a game.
What do you mean?
They're like mirrors, reflecting our own fears, doubts, the dark places inside us all.
In the adventurer's journey.
It shows that even when it's dark, we have a choice.
To give in or to fight?
Even if the light was just a tiny flicker.
That's a great way to put it. Here's something else to think about. Strahd brought them to Barovia for fun, right? So has he been planning everything? Or do they still have free will in his domain? It's something to ponder as you continue your own adventures, whether at the table or online. Until next time, may your dice rolls be amazing.